we're doing the pre-roll, like the kind of amble before we get into it again. Episode 18. Episode 18.
18.
Yeah.
18 hours of my life.
Where are we going to be at episode 100?
I don't know.
Hopefully we'll still be here.
We'll find out. Yeah.
First topic today is presenting and pitching. We've done a lot of presenting and pitching recently. I think it's an art form. What's your thoughts on pitching, presenting in general?
I think that the most common, I don't want to say mistake, but the thing that people get wrong, and it's not like we're guilty free of that in the past. It's about being able to accurately answer the brief, So I think there's two sides to it. One is having a good brief so that you can be very specific with how you answer the brief. And the other thing is resolve the problem, right? Resolve the challenge. Not just pitch your ideas that you like. You have to actually resolve the client issue. That's what I think.
Yeah, and there's always this argument between slides and no slides. Like, where do you come down on that?
I think it depends on the project, the circumstance. But I think having a visual aid helps communicate ideas and thinking and logic much quicker than just verbal communication. I guess it would be almost like the difference between qualitative and quantitative, in a sense that, like, when there's something that's like quantitative, it's tangible, you can see it, whereas when it's just verbal communication, some of it is a bit more subjective and open to interpretation.
Yeah, and also another thing people always do is they put too much information on the slides, and they just read the slides. That seems to happen like over and over again, right?
Yeah,
Do you
even
remember in college? Like, you do these group work in college, and I'd always have a fucking argument with whoever's in the group saying there's too much on the slides, and then they would say no, there's not enough on the slides. It's like a perpetual cycle.
Is college, is this UK college or American college?
Yeah, US, like UK.
You mean university, or do you
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. Well,
Right.
mine was a technical college, like at one point, but it got upgraded to university.
Okay, well, there we go. Um, I think some of it is cultural as well. I've seen how people do PPT decks in different parts of the world. A lot more information dense than presentations that I see given in other places in the world, such as the West. And know your audience, right?
Yeah.
That's another thing. Know your audience.
I think you need to start with the audience, because if you build like a presentation and you don't know who you're talking to, or you think you know who you're talking to without actually doing any research, then basically it's not going to hit. It's just going to fall flat, right? I think that's the first step. It's like when we do pitches to these companies, it's like we always start with the background, right? Kind of
Yeah, exactly.
set the scene.
Of course, you have to do the research, otherwise your answer is not grounded in any reality.
Yeah, who's like the best presentation you've seen, either live or online, TED Talk or in person? Putting you on the
I don't
spot.
know. I can't say best, but what I can say is that there's a MIT professor called Patrick Winston that has a free lecture online called How to Speak, and it's about how to give a presentation. And I have to say, a very useful tool, a very insightful presentation. It certainly changed the way that I started presenting information.
Patrick Winston.
I think it's Patrick Winston, yeah.
He's a professor.
Yeah, well, was. I think he's no longer with us. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, who do I like now? Presenting. It's actually hard. I think it's an art form that's kind of dying, actually. There's not many people that do it well now. to be honest.
Well, I think there's different circumstances and
I'll tell you
contexts
which
as
one
well.
hit me, the first one that hit me, and it's not because of the content. It was just because of the the overall package. It was the Al Gore one, the Inconvenient Truth. That
Never
was a
seen it,
super slick. It was super slick, like in terms of the flow and the obviously the aesthetics, and they turned that basically into the documentary, right? Like the presentation was the basis for the documentary. He was super convincing, to be fair. Um, yeah, but obviously it's kind of bullshit. At the end, I kind of found out it's kind of bullshit, but
Mm,
yeah,
no
I don't
comment.
know. Yeah. Do you watch any of the TED stuff? I noticed they had some new
You know, one
new.
one time, a long time ago, as you know, I used to work in the conference space, so I've seen a lot of presentations. Okay, a lot, no, hundreds, and the whole TED Talk thing, I find it very like high level. It's a performance, right? As much
It
as
is a
it is
performance.
about delivering like information. So I also once bought a book in an airport, which was like a TED Talks book. I think I know other people that made the same mistake. And and yeah, I just got nothing useful out of it, and it killed it killed my enthusiasm for the brand, put it that way.
That's quite funny. Um, yeah. And also I think people. You said performance there is quite interesting because again another one I think of is the Sell Me the Pen. You know, the Jordan Belfort. Like a lot of people remember these spectacle type pitches. You know,
Tony Robbins, you a big
Tony
fan?
Robbins. Yeah. And then Gary, right? Gary V, just making stuff up on the spot.
Yeah, yeah. And again, it's these people are like showmen, you
Yes.
know. They're not just like salespeople or business people, they're showmen, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the optimal presentation is like a mixture of that, right? You need a little bit of showmanship, but you need the education piece. Um, and just yeah, you can't bullshit people with like wrong information.
Don't know, I've seen a few people do that.
Yeah. To
I,
like
I, I don't know, like, I don't want to go into too much detail, but there was one time I was at a conference in Philadelphia. It was a pharmaceutical conference. And it was like this, you know, one of their big dogs, the CIO, CDO, whatever, of a very, very big pharmaceutical company. And he obviously just didn't have a clue what he was talking about, just making it all up.
it was like that guy in the BBC. Remember the guy? He went on in the wrong slot, and he was just like lost.
No,
No, do you know that guy? He was like,
mm,
you remember he got put on the BBC and he didn't even know. Uh, it's not
are you talking
guy.
about the guy that was like just came in through the side door?
Yeah, guy. The guy was called Guy. The guy was called Guy Goma. I just seen it on Google, and he just completely like wasn't ready for the interview. He didn't even know what he was talking about.
Right.
There
I
was
mean,
supposed to be
how,
a music guy. It was supposed to be a music expert, and the guy was
I
not
mean,
music random.
how you end up in that situation? Like, how do you
Have you
just,
ever like froze on the stage like or like been like stuck, you know?
not really.
No,
I,
I
I,
think as long as you rehearse, then you're good.
yeah, you've got to do a bit of rehearsal. Ah, the viewers I don't know if the viewers will be seeing this on the YouTube. That my connection's quite slow today, so can you see that?
Yes, developing country internet. What can you?
Yeah, apparently Vietnam, where I am right now, full disclosure, apparently it has three lines of telephone communication cable, but apparently only one of the three lines is working.
Mm,
Apparently, I don't know, but that's what
because
I've heard that from a few different people now.
because there's just only 3 lines.
Who knows? Maybe it's a rumor. Maybe there's not. Maybe there just is one line and it's rubbish. But um, the internet speeds in Vietnam are not good. I think that Vietnam will just transition to probably like 5G technology, kind of similar to China in that way, where it's like they don't depend on um, cable.
Yeah,
Yeah. Don't have 5G in this country yet, but it is coming. I did start seeing some adverts for 5G, but it wasn't here 3 months ago. Definitely no. There was no mention of 5G 3 months ago. Actually, when I got my SIM card at the airport, last time I came to Vietnam, there was some Chinese guys standing behind me, and they were also queuing for a SIM card, and they said, "We'll have three 5G SIM cards." I had to tell these guys, I was like, "There's no 5G in Vietnam." And they were like, they were just mind blown, because obviously I think
used
5G
to it.
in China is so common.
Yeah,
They were just like, is he right? Is he telling the truth to the people behind the desk? And they were like, yeah, yeah, there is no 5G here in Vietnam.
shock. Um, Final one on the presentation. Like we're going to see this Apple headset this summer, right? And Tim Cook's gonna he's probably going to butcher the presentation. He's not a super engaging presenter. Do you think it matters these days? Like,
Well,
do you think these like presentations matter to the overall success of a product? Because we've seen a decline in these things in recent years.
it's because everybody is doing the same thing.
Yes.
Everybody's just hosting. It's a PR event.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's just for the press and media, the same press and media that come every time. Some of those press and media have to be paid to go. I bet they don't have to be paid to go to Apple, but it's just
Expenses.
like
They get their
you,
expenses covered.
yeah, again, not to blow the trumpet of nothing, but I liked their launch was kind of similar to their phone, right? It's like just different. So kudos to them there. I know they did get some like quote unquote kind of criticism for it, which I personally feel was a little bit unjustified. I think that they pushed the boat out and fair play to them. But ultimately, your launch event, your launch party, whatever it is, your launch event has to match your brand.
Yeah.
It has to be part of the story.
But it does feel like even other things like fashion now, like even the runways and stuff, don't seem to get as much attention anymore. It's like all about drops now, you know, just like online, you do a drop. Um, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see like whether like these presentations keep going. Different brands, I don't know. Even Tesla doesn't do any of these anymore. It used to have these big presentations. Now it's like, oh, there's a new car on the website. Go and buy it. Don't know.
I think it depends. Like all of it is planned anyway. You telling me that the Cybertruck window wasn't planned to smash? Come on, that's just good PR. They knew that that would create a viral story.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, that's a good segue on to the next topic. A couple of weeks ago, we had the Shanghai Auto Show, and basically everyone now is saying that Chinese cars are going to dominate the scene in terms of electric cars. We both don't own a car. We haven't driven in a long time, so it's kind of hard
I
to.
have.
You
I
have,
drove. I've been driving around in Thailand. Yeah.
sorry, Thailand, but like we don't own a car, so it's like I feel like a little bit out of touch with cars, but we have to talk about it because it's basically a smartphone on wheels now. Electric cars.
I will say this. There's a type of car called an Aura Good Cat. Okay. You can you can Google it. I'm not sure. I think it might have been developed by an Australian company, but it's part of the general Great Wall Motors outfit,
Conglomerate,
Chinese
yeah.
yeah. And they're all over the place in Thailand. There's so many. I know people that own them as well.
Yeah,
So the wave has started. I do think that Chinese EVs will dominate
yeah.
markets, to be honest. Maybe not Western markets, but definitely everywhere else in the world.
I got into an argument with a guy on Twitter about this, and he said basically Chinese cars are going to dominate the world. And I said yes, they will in Europe, but I said they won't in the US because I think when the US sees a smartphone on wheels coming, they'll just think Huawei, and they'll think we're going to ban these guys. We're going to we're gonna stop them on national security grounds. And he was like, well, they can build the cars in the US and they can store the data in the US, but I think it's going to be a massive geopolitical storm when these cars come en masse, I think.
Yeah, it'll be a Huawei situation all over. I can't see them being heavily imported into Europe, to be honest with you.
Mm.
I think that by that point, I think that there'll be more competitive. I think that the Western countries are going to have to install some new manufacturing industries to rely less on
Well, we tried,
Chinese
right? We,
goods.
we tried with British Volt and it failed. We tried to build it was it Sunderland? They tried to build it somewhere in the northeast. Um, was it Sunderland or somewhere like that?
The
Volt.
British what?
It's called British Volt. Blythe. They tried to build a factory in Blythe,
Did not know that.
but it completely collapsed.
Mm. I mean, there's a big car factory from Nissan in Sunderland,
Yeah,
huge. Um, but I thought that that might have even been like closing down
yeah,
or
yeah. I
reducing
heard
the
that.
amount of jobs. So again, I'm not saying the UK, but yeah, if you look at where the UK is now with the inflation, soon they'll be able to start having labor industries again. It's coming back. It has to be. There's a lot of immigration, which is also going to drive down, you know, wages. It's going to be more competitive in the UK. So all the factors that contribute to low labor costs and productivity in terms of manufacturing. The writing's on the wall. Like look at Shenzhen. It's not people from Shenzhen that work in the factories. It's people from all over China, and I think it's
Yeah,
similar situation going on in
yeah.
in the West.
Um, so that's going to be a long-term thing. We don't know if it's going to kind of how it's going to go. But Chinese cars are very competitive. But there was another story from the auto show that I saved, and basically BMW caused a massive fuss because apparently they were serving ice cream to all the foreign guests, but not the Chinese. And basically, there was a huge boycott of BMW off the back of this.
You
uh,
know,
so
never take a free sample away from the Chinese people. That's what I'm
it's
gonna
it's
say.
funny how these things happen though. We've seen this many times, right? Where a brand like a foreign brand goes into China and they make some kind of mistake. It could be a small mistake, and then it blows up in their face, right? And then they've got like a nationwide boycott.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand it because people don't want to feel discriminated against, but more importantly, never take a free sample away from Chinese people. Chinese people love a free sample. They do. If you're Chinese, comment below and confirm.
But it does raise the question, like again, of how slightly going off topic, but it does raise the question of like how can foreign brands really compete in China long term? It's so hard that market for them to go there and compete. Like they're competing against both a different culture and domestic brands that are like you know just growing like a weed. Very difficult.
I've I have opinions on that. I don't think foreign brands will ever compete in China. Not to the point where they'd have like monopoly. And again, I'd say that the brands that have been closest to doing that are Apple and Tesla probably.
Yeah, I think Apple are probably the only one in my mind. Um,
But they only dominate in tier one cities. They don't
yeah,
dominate in
they
the
they
vast
just they
majority of China.
it's funny they just overtook our old company Oppo as the number one smartphone brand in China by market share. So they're doing something right. Um,
Well, I tell you what it is to all the former colleagues that we used to work with. Oppo has too many phones that they can't maintain. It's the software, it's the operating system that I think really holds back Oppo devices more so than the hardware.
yeah. And then also in the auto show, I'm looking at the numbers here. Tesla is cutting their prices in China. It's very affordable now. Do you think like what's the strategy to compete against like these Chinese companies like BYD, Geely, um, Neo, Xiaopeng? Like if their technology is superior and they're cheaper than you, like how do you compete if you're a BMW or a Volkswagen or Porsche?
Yeah, well, you do what the BYD did to these other companies, which is take apart their cars and look at their technology and try and replicate it. I mean, I don't want to say too much because I don't want to sound um, I don't want to sound negative about the way that things are done, but a lot of these companies, like the innovation, it's very incremental because they're basing their technology of stuff that they've stolen from elsewhere, you know, and rebuilding it and trying to improve on it. It's not innovation in the sense of, oh, it's a completely new idea. So if Tesla, etc., that's why Elon Musk is building the factory in China, right? Because to compete, he has to be able to get the cost of the labor down to be able to do it at the scale that is required in China. So
I think certain things they do innovate, like batteries. The Cattle company, CATL, they're pretty much the world leader in batteries. But partly because China's got the rare earths, right? They can actually, you know, use the
again,
resources themselves.
another reason why Elon Musk is there.
Yeah,
Elon Musk is there to learn about the batteries. He's not. It's not like I think that Elon Musk is not loyal to like any like American political cause.
yeah, yep. Um, but anyway, I think it was quite a notable event because basically it also signaled China is open for business again, and
Hmm,
I feel like there's probably opportunities in China now that there wasn't for the
yeah,
last few years.
yeah, definitely. But I still think that it's going to be very domestic market focused with an emphasis on homegrown brands. That's the new rules. It's not pre 2020,
It's not. It's definitely not pre-COVID. Um,
right?
at least we're not seeing that. But I think long term they're going to have to export. They're going to have to go overseas because I think their population, is kind of not going to support enough
Yeah,
business.
Africa, South Asia.
And
Yeah,
Europe, Europe's an easy target because we're not like America where we're going to ban everything.
I'm not so sure. I feel that remains to be seen, to be honest.
Well, I don't know.
I'm not so sure about how how much penetration the Chinese market, sorry, the Chinese businesses will have in the European market.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. Definitely a mixed bag.
I I think the reason why I'm unsure is just the geopolitical situations that are going on right now.
Yeah.
Gotta try this one thing.
Yeah, moving on. We're going to talk about AI. We talk about AI every week these days, but we can't help it, right? Because it's literally every single week there's some really interesting story to talk about. And the way it's impacting marketing is just like you can't not talk about it. So this is a story from BBDO, which is it's a big agency, market agency, and their CEO put out a memo saying basically um, you should try AI tools, but basically because of copyright and some other stuff, don't use them on client work directly. That was his like words. But
I,
that's a super controversial one.
I'm going to say this here and now. Um, if somebody uses ChatGPT to do things, I will be able to know immediately. I can tell. Yeah, especially if I've tried to do the same thing that they're doing. I'll give you an example. If somebody is writing copy for a brand or a website, okay, for PR or for social media or advertising or whatever, okay, the ChatGPT, OpenAI, whatever tool it is, it's indexing certain websites, right? So it has a bank of information of which is indexed, and it will pull knowledge from there or pull information from there to create its answer. But what happens is it creates like a monoculture because everybody, if I said, write a website product description for the iPhone 14 Pro, and somebody else also wanted to do that, we're going to get more or less the same answer because the information sources will be the same.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's like it's like it ends up repeating the same kind of phrases. Maybe it uses the same kind of like adjectives, verbs, adverbs to describe situations. So I would never use ChatGPT, OpenAI, any of these AI tools on client work because I think it's increasingly obvious, to be honest.
Yeah, and the two other issues he mentioned in the memo was, um, the first one was copyright, which takes me back to like the music industry, Napster, and all these guys. There was this argument that all the labels tried to shut down Napster, and they did shut down Napster, um, but at the end of the day, Napster still won because music went digital, right? So there's this argument that like AI is blatantly using copyright materials, which it is, but it's gonna win in the end any day, like because you know you can't stop it. Um, that's a tough one. Copyright's always tricky.
Well, I mean, I think it's also like this, you know, adjusting the temperature on these tools makes a big difference. So how fruity it gets with its answer. I think that's the thing with ChatGPT, the publicly accessible, like consumer facing interface of the OpenAI,
Yeah,
is that they've obviously turned down the fruitiness of its answer. Like in the
yeah,
last few months or weeks at least, it just gives more standardized answers. It's than it ever did, and it's kind of structured in a very structured way. I'm not saying that it does it still has unbelievable functionality. The functionality did not change. The applicability of the tool is the same, but the actual content
yeah.
is more limited.
It's similar to the argument against TikTok, right? Like TikTok say it's all algorithms, but at the end of the day, like they write the algorithm and they train it, right? So of course, there's always going to be bias
Yeah,
somewhere along the
yeah,
line.
true.
Um, yeah,
But when we were at that conference in Singapore, there
yeah,
was a company there. What were they called? I mean, it was a TikTok company. It was a ByteDance company, and their business was selling the algorithm. They
yeah,
sell the algorithm, not necessarily in the context of like content distribution, but in all for example, if you had a marketplace e-commerce app, okay, it would suggest items that you might want to buy, but you could basically install the TikTok algorithm into your e-commerce marketplace platform, so you have the same characteristics of suggestibility that make
yeah.
TikTok addictive.
Was
That's
it called?
what they
Was it
was.
called Byte Plus? Was that what it's called? Byte
I
Plus?
think yeah, Byte
Yeah.
Plus. It sounds about right. Yeah,
Build better products, richer experiences, growth through intelligent solutions. I think it's that one, right?
yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. The other argument that was in the memo was client confidentiality, and you think about that, like when agencies, when we get like documents from clients, we store it on our servers, and we typically don't use that information directly in the work that we do. But if you're putting like client materials into a tool like ChatGPT, then in theory you're breaking your confidentiality with the client, and that was his other big concern. I think that's quite legit, you know, because if
I
you
would
if you
say yeah,
use these tools and client information's out there, like there's no control. You can't
but
you can't stop people from doing it.
Microsoft also on their their email exchanges, and so did Google. I think that people raise these concerns, but you have an Apple laptop, you have a Google mobile phone. It's what's the difference?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Apple have buy-in on everybody's stuff unless you have like a completely encrypted. operating system.
Yeah, it's where do you draw the line, right?
Yeah. I think the case would be like maybe would ChatGPT recycle any information that it learned from you to another person? That would
Yeah, yeah.
probably be something that is also a concern.
It's kind of mind-boggling, right? When you think about the consequences of using these tools, like it's especially when there's confidentiality, like legal. Imagine legal teams, like it's a minefield, really. But then you don't use it, and then you basically a smaller company, smaller agency, freelancer, they get ahead because they do it right. It's like catch 22 in some way.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when it first came about, it was definitely, I want to say better than it is now. I don't use it as much as I was utilizing it before, but I probably still utilize it every day, open it. I mean, all the automations, right? The automations I utilize every day without utilizing. I don't physically go and, write some of the tweets that I write. It's all automated online. So I guess I'm still using it. That's the future for me, as is the topic of the presentation as well. The future is automation of the AI.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is only the beginning of these kind of these arguments and thoughts. But I think agencies are basically they have to roll with AI. They can't
Uh,
ignore it.
it's interesting. It's interesting. I do wonder the applicability of the tool. Um, and where, I mean, I don't know. I'd have to obviously look into the solution more, but I think it's quite interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And then the other thing on AI was AI music. So basically, there was a song with Drake and The Weeknd. They've never collaborated, as far as I know, like directly on a track. So some guy threw this track together, and within 48 hours, it had over 20 million streams. People loved it.
Well, DJs have been doing mashups for ages now anyway, so this is just a quicker, more seamless way to do it. So, I still see people do mashups and collaborations of artists that never collaborated in the analog format, whereby they would just, you know, rip the vocals, create an a cappella of one track and layer it over somebody else's backing track or whatever. That's always been done. It's just the ease of which it can be done now. The average Joe can just pick their favorite Drake and Weekend track and
Yeah.
put it into a machine and it's a brand new song.
It's very interesting what he said on Instagram. He commented on Instagram, and people are trying to think about is he being serious or not. He said, "This is the final straw AI." So people are really speculating, like, is he going to embrace this, or is he going to like try and sue them, try and get it taken
Who?
back? Drake,
It's up to his lawyers, isn't it?
Jay Z, he used to always do that, right? Like he always used to sue people for the like YouTube uploads, and the record labels are famous for basically suing everyone, right, for copyright material.
Business.
Yeah.
It's not personal.
The question is from an artist perspective, like if their fans love these mashups and it improves their record sales and their concert sales and all this stuff, then why would they be against it? That's the
I
question.
think it's the proliferation of that style of content that they would be fearful of because they could make half the amount that they would make otherwise if, 20 million streams, I don't know how much revenue that generates, but I can imagine
Probably
that
not
it's
not
a
a lot.
fair amount. Nah, I
Spotify
can
probably.
imagine 20 million. I can imagine it's a fair amount.
Yeah, but
Yeah, easily, I reckon around, I'm not saying millions, but maybe creeping up to $100,000, I think is fair to say.
yeah. So what do you think? Like, should companies like should Spotify like stop like cut access to the music catalog, or like sue them, or like is this another one like finger in the dam situation like the agency stuff? Is it like You either embrace it or
Yeah, I
you
agree with you.
fight it.
I agree with you. I think it's finger in the dam. I think it's just going to be a case of how it's managed and regulated. Everybody's going, oh, the AI, blah blah blah. It's going to be so revolutionary. It will for those who have access to it, but the vast majority of people are going to have, you know, third tier access, not first tier access to these tools. So it will be regulated, and people will decide how it will be used for, you know, Joe Blogs, the general public.
Mm,
So it's finger in the dam, but it's like there's a dam that's being constructed with a lot of money by the corporations and the entities that might own or originally own, like intellectual property,
yeah,
to limit maybe other companies like the AI creation tools to say if some so and so does this, we're entitled to X. So, there'll be regulation.
yeah. Do you remember when like the likes of like who can I give an example like Avicii and like Alan Walker and all these guys that Kygo, like no one ever heard of these guys before, right? They just they did their mix tapes on SoundCloud, and then they blew up, right? They became very famous worldwide, and they did sellout
Hmm.
concerts, and they just came out of nowhere. These people. I remember Alan Walker. He did a concert in Zhuhai, and like this was like when he started, like years ago, just when I was around this area, like, and the only reason he was there was because of that like mixtape on SoundCloud. Like he got like a record deal. Um, do you think like do you think can you imagine yourself going to like an event like a concert one day and it's just pure AI? There's no DJ. It's just like it's all AI. Like there's no there's no performer. Can you imagine that situation?
Well, personally, you wouldn't find me at that conference,
Yeah,
at that event, but yeah, I can imagine. And it will be the youth of today that go, no, the AI is better than a person.
yeah.
So it's gonna happen. It's just a matter of time
I
and
saw Calvin
generations.
Harris here. Like there must have been 8,000 people or whatever, and you've literally got a stage, and then you've got Calvin at the decks. All you're doing is taking away Calvin, right? And it's the same. It's the same experience. You're just minus the man at the front. You know?
Yeah, but this is the thing about that. Like, I mean, this is not to criticize that genre of music, okay? But I do have a problem with it, mostly because I'm a bit of like an electronic music snob, as you know. Um, but the problem is with those kind of things is formulaic, and you know, outside of that kind of genre, that people are going to also watch the artist perform. They actually they know the technicalities of, is that a good DJ move? And did he mix it good there? And how good's his mixing? And what's his track selection? Because maybe he's going to play a new track that we've never heard. And again, DJs outside of that genre won't just play their music and music from that record label. They'll play across the spectrum. So I think there's a performance that is taken away. I mean, you've been to a nightclub in Shenzhen. Those people are just pressing play. They're not.
Mate, our favorite place in Bangkok, the DJ. Remember last time we were just saying like, are they actually doing anything, or are they just standing there? Remember on
Yeah, I mean, probably a mixture of both at that
both,
place.
right?
Yeah,
But I think this raises a bigger question. Like it touches on not just like music, but like could be marketing, could be any sector. Like AI, like self-driving cars. Do you need a human being involved in the job per se to trust it or buy it or enjoy the experience?
I think the involvement of the human just becomes less and less as the technology progresses.
Yeah.
It's just people will be phased out. And again, the way that I would describe it is like we're staying above the waterline. We're trying to just stay above the waterline, and some people will be below the waterline before other people, right? So that's where the
How
AI.
clean is the water? If the water's clean, then I guess okay.
I don't want to find out, to be
Yeah.
fair. So I quite like my autonomy.
Um, yeah, it's kind of scary. And someone tweeted there yesterday, ChatGPT was launched 5 months ago.
Yeah. and it was regulated very heavily about 4 months ago.
Pretty mental.
So yeah, it is a pretty shocking statistic to be honest. 5 months. Wow, a lot has changed.
It has, yeah, a lot.
A lot. I think automation tools are coming into their own as well, like Zapier and etc. I think
Yeah, and
those that's
not just like on the server side, like a lot of what you can do on like behind the scenes back end is now automated. Um, we're talking about electric cars there at the Shanghai Auto Show. They're all going to be self-driving, um, in the near future. So it's pretty mental actually.
couple of years really. Couple of
Our
years.
kids are not going to learn to drive, eh? Don't think so.
Who knows? Who knows? Probably not.
They're not going to learn to drive. They're not going to need to use Google search probably. Uh, mind blowing. Here,
Yeah.
a flip on its head. What's going to stay the same in
Uh,
marketing?
in
Start with that.
marketing. Well, here's the situation with the whole marketing thing. I feel like AI right now, its biggest challenge is it can't spawn an idea without any information being loaded into it. It can't just be abstract. People can still get epiphanies, and a machine just can't get an epiphany. It can't just have a moment, a sudden moment of realization and decide, here's a new idea that we're going to do. A
There's a word
human
for
can
that,
do
right?
that.
Is that sentient? Is that sentient describes think for itself, right? Yes.
Right. I mean, even if, I mean, where do you draw the line on thinking though? Because if processing is thinking, in like sort of like thinking in binary terms, uh, it, that's what I'm saying. It relies on something.
The,
It needs
yeah.
input.
The other
Whereas I can go to sleep and have a dream.
yeah
Maybe the input is like all my experiences and collections. Maybe it will be able to do that. Who
yeah
knows?
the other thing's emotion. So imagine. So we were talking about. I sent you a deck last week, and I told you the story about the guy that did the presentation. And I think what won the day was the emotion in the room. Like you could feel like there was a loving, there was a warm feeling. Um, the slides are slides, but like you need that emotion connection to kind of you know basically connect with people and get the work. Uh, that's missing in AI because it's ruthless, right? It's cold blooded. It just does what it does, and then unless it can develop emotion, then that's potentially our most powerful defense against it. I think.
I mean, what is emotion? Because emotion is the intangible. So it's like, how do you develop emotion? It's not something you can measure. Does anger feel the same for everyone? Does love feel the same for everyone?
Mm.
Is happiness experienced in the same way? I mean, we could say, oh, certain chemicals like dopamine are released in the brain and therefore, blah, blah, blah. But the actual like consciousness of it, as in like the experience, there's no way to understand whether that experience of like let's say a dopamine rush is the same experience in everyone because everyone's genetic makeup is also different. But there's no tangible way to really measure it. You can see the chemicals, but the experience is very subjective.
Yeah, no, fair. Um, yeah, and that comes back to like purpose as well. Like if you're like as a human being, like if AI can do the job better than you, then like unless you can add like value in terms of like not just to do the job, but like make yourself feel good, then why would you get involved? Like why would you interject into the process?
Mm, I would agree. I would agree.
I think
I
we
would
I
agree.
think
But
we
that
yeah.
speaks more broadly to kind of, you know, doing what you enjoy anyway. I mean, you think AI also has the capability of taking away some of the monotony of certain tasks.
Yeah. No, I think marketing people need to abstract themselves, definitely. We need to like get out of the trenches, so to speak, and get onto the hill and like overlook the battle and try and you know be more strategic.
Well, a lot of people as well, the marketing people, again, I guess this is coming full circle on what you were saying earlier about doing the research. A lot of people just go, oh, here's a brand, it makes this product. I think that this would be a good campaign. It's like, okay, well, hang on, why? Why do you think that? What has informed your decision?
Yeah. It's first of May today, mate. So we'll kind of finish up. I think just things you're looking forward to this summer. It's the summer is upon us officially.
Uh, Hanging out with you for 2 months in Hong Kong. Um, I don't know, just life's really, I wouldn't trade, my life is hard in some ways, but it's better than it ever has been in other ways. So I don't know, I just look forward to every day at the moment. As cheesy as that sounds, what about you?
No, I agree. Like, there's so much negative shit around right now. Like between the war, between economy, between like all of the politics and like you could go on and on, right? There's so many things um like it can drag you down sometimes. I was thinking about this yesterday, like I was sitting at home and I just had a quiet day to myself, and sometimes you need that, like just to kind of refocus yourself, get your energy back. I went to the gym and I just chilled out in the afternoon, and it's like everyone's online. Like I'm not talking about a specific holiday here, but everyone's online. Like, look at me, like I'm in a volcano somewhere, or I'm in like fucking Seoul or something, Japan or whatever. It's like it's a lot of virtue signaling going on, right? To kind of, I think, distract people from the reality, like the kind of shitstorm of the world right now. And I think my point is just be happy for the small mercies we have.
Well, I agree, and not to sound like too nihilistic, but I think that a lot of the doom and gloom is kind of manufactured as well. Like, regardless of whether you think it says because it gets clicks or likes or engagement on social media, which generates some kind of money or, captures people attention, which can then be monetized. Like, maybe that is the case, but
Well, I mean, it's every second Instagram post, right? Like it's
I mean,
rampant, like everywhere.
yeah, the good times are. I don't know. I don't know. Good times. Just have good times. That's it. Everybody have good times.
Have good times. Don't be afraid to share. I would say, but also be, as you say, like you got to be every day. Like treat every day as like, even if it's a normal day, just enjoy it. I think a lot of people. We see a lot of people. We know like people that kind of. I think they just save up their good days and they just toil. Like they toil away in a shit situation, or a job they're not enjoying, for the one day that maybe is like a good day. Do you know what I mean? Like they're
Yeah.
it's like saving sex for marriage. It's that kind of feeling.
Don't know about that, but the situation that I heard an Andrew quote take yesterday, actually on
Andrew
YouTube.
Tate quote, not Andrew quote Tate.
Is that what I said? I saw an Andrew Tate quote yesterday, and it was something like you know people. I don't want to say too much because obviously he's inflammatory
Yeah,
intentionally. Okay, so
I'll
it's
get our
not
pod taken down
it
if you say too much.
it's it's not like I fully agree with everything he says, but he did say if you're living like a moderately comfortable life and you need a therapist, there's people in Afghanistan whose father got blown up by a bomb yesterday, and they're back out on the street making and selling bread to survive.
Yeah,
Like, don't take, don't just appreciate how good your life actually is compared to the vast majority of people in these countries, like in all over the world, Middle East and Africa, and it's awful. Stop war, everyone. Um, but it's awful. It's awful. That is the situation.
I
I think a
also
lot of
am.
a lot of people obviously they just get in their own head and their own bubble, and they don't zoom out and see things in like
Yeah.
the broader
I
context.
also think people get trapped in the instant gratification culture we have now, where like they have to get things now, they have to get this job now, they have to get this car now, and social media is kind of that's the negative side of social media, right? Like it really gives you that fucking FOMO like every day.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I'd say that it affects the youth a lot more. I don't want to sound like I'm saying bad things about the youth here, but be patient as well. Stop rushing and saying that you can do things and, take the money and figure it out. Like, that doesn't always work out well because
Yeah,
you take the money, you look like a fool if you can't do the job or can't get it finished. I'm not saying don't take risk, okay? Sometimes it is right to take the money and to have a go if you really truly know that you have the capability or the right kind of people around you to be able to execute said task or the right mentality. But if you haven't got any of those three things and it's just like, let's take the money because I like the money and we'll figure it out once we've got the money, then yeah, I've seen that go wrong a lot. And especially I see it a lot more often in young people these days. And I think I agree with you. I think social media has definitely played a part in that.
yeah. Anywhere you want to go this summer? Like any particular places? No,
You
no.
you I've already got like a travel plan lined up. I'm here and then I'm going to Hong Kong, then I'm going to China, then I might come back here and then go to Japan. I've got some friends from the US going to Japan soon. So probably go to Japan in like September, October time.
Yeah, I want to go back to
And
Japan. I haven't been in a while.
yeah, I've never been actually.
It's expensive, but it's nice.
I've heard.
Philippines?
It's one of those ones that keeps getting deprioritized. Um, I will go one day, but I don't know. It's not got a massive appeal to me. I think the appeal of the Philippines is like actually their marketing service industries are very strong and good for the amount of money that they cost.
Yeah. Yeah, where am I going? Taiwan. Go back to Taiwan.
Is that it?
That's it at the moment, yeah. Taiwan's
No
nice.
other plan?
Nah.
When are you moving out of Hong Kong?
Next year.
You said that. I swear you said like a podcast or two ago that you were like thinking about Bali and
If you talk to anyone in Hong Kong, when are you leaving Hong Kong? Next year. Next year. It's not a bad place, mate. I think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll.
we'll see.
I think it's got a bit of everything.
I've heard.
Yeah,
Very livable.
yeah. You got the hiking, you got the beach, you got the city, you got nightlife.
I don't know,
Not bad.
We'll see. We'll see.
All right, we're gonna wrap
We are.
episode 18 in the books.
Boom.
Ciao.